Hello, I'm Elisa Zhang, and I'm a physician as well as a life and money coach. So in this video, I'm going to talk about emergency funds. What is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is money that you set aside to cover any financial surprises or any sudden large expenses that life may throw your way. So the biggest one is probably the loss of your job. During the COVID pandemic, there were a lot of people who were furloughed or lost their jobs, and this included physicians. So this is probably the first time for many physicians that we realized that our jobs are really not as secure as we thought they were. There were physicians who were furloughed so that they weren't actually fired, but they were told not to work and they were not paid. There were physicians who were actually going to work and still not getting paid. There were physicians where they were forced to use their paid time off. And there were physicians who frankly were just let go. And I know physicians in all of these different situations. And, fortunately, as a physician, we do tend to have relatively large incomes. And if we depend on those incomes to pay our bills, our mortgage, food, just all the basic needs, that can be quite a bit of money. And if that money stops flowing in, then having an emergency fund is where we can go get that money in order to maintain, life until we figure things out. And, what happened during the beginning of the pandemic also? Well, the stock market crashed. And that's why you want to have your emergency fund somewhere that is easily accessible, but also someplace that you can get without necessarily having to take a loss like the stock market. Now, that being said, depending on how large your emergency fund is, sometimes it may be reasonable to consider some of your stock portfolio as part of your emergency fund because it is money that you can get relatively quickly if you need to. So what are other reasons besides losing your job that you want an emergency fund? Well, if you're a physician watching this, we're in the medical profession. We know that medical emergencies can come up very unexpectedly and can be a cause of financial stress for a lot of people. So depending on your health insurance coverage, you may really find yourself suddenly with very high medical bills if you're in an accident or you suddenly need some kind of surgery. Unexpected home repairs can also be very expensive. If your roof starts leaking and you think, okay, I'll just get it patched up, but the roofer comes and says, well, I could patch it up for a couple $1,000s, but you really need a new roof like very soon because this patch probably won't last. There's probably going to be other spots, or you just have multiple leaks all at once. Depending on the size of your house, a roof could cost $10,000, $20,000, even $30,000. So this actually happened with the short-term rental I bought. I did get an inspection on the house and was told the roof was probably in its second of third tier of life. So probably had a good 10 years left. But then suddenly I had multiple leaks at once, and now I need a new roof right away. And this was within less than a year of purchasing that particular property. Car repairs can be expensive, maybe not as expensive as a roof, but as your cars get older, then it just seems like every time you go in to bring your car in for maintenance, there's something else that needs to be changed. And that could be $500, that could be $1,000. And right now, it is very expensive to buy a new car. The cars have been in shortage. Used cars are going for what new cars used to sell for, and new cars are going for well over standard MSRP. And that's even if you can find a car to buy. There are wait lists for many cars right now. So having that cash on hand can just kind of give you some security and the feeling of safety if any things happen. My mother once told me, if you have a problem that money can solve, then it's really not a problem. So that's what emergency fund is really just about. It's to make things not a problem, right? Money can't buy you happiness, but money can certainly solve problems, and having money to solve those problems can alleviate stress. And again, it also just prevents you from borrowing money when you're in a pinch or selling your stocks when the market is down. So how much should you have in your emergency fund? Well, traditional wisdom states that you should have 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses. So that would be your housing, food, utilities, transportation, basic personal expenses, and the minimum payments on any debt that you have. But it doesn't have to be 3 to 6 months of your actual income. Hopefully there's a difference between what you're spending and what you're income is, so that there's that gap where you're having money to save and invest. And you can temporarily decrease spending for some time on things that aren't necessary, like going out to eat or entertainment, saving for vacations, or even putting money towards retirement for a period of time if you have to. Depending on your employment situation, you may want to consider having more than 6 months. Some people even like to have a whole year, especially if you're thinking that a recession is coming up, or if it's going to take you a while to find a new job if you were to lose your current job. So for physicians, when we go to a new job, then there's new credentialing. If you're going to another state, there's a new license. So that can take multiple months. But at the same time, 1 year of basic living expenses may really be a lot to just hold only in cash. So there are other ways that you could try to make it so that you're having some that money still work for you. You can definitely try to find the highest yield savings accounts out there. Unfortunately, those are still not paying great, but at least currently they are paying, I think, 1.6% or so. It's what I'm getting on my online high yield savings account. You could also consider CDs, and you could do like a CD ladder so that there's always a CD maturing at the time where if you need the money, then you could use it. And if you don't need the money, you just buy another CD. You could put a portion into iBonds where for the first year, you can't access that money. So for that first year, you can't necessarily consider it as part of your emergency fund. But after a year, you can actually withdraw that money just with some penalty on the amount of interest that you get paid out. And after 5 years, there's no penalty at all. So over time, you can just keep putting money into iBonds, and just nothing that you put in last year you can take out, but after a year, consider that. And you could have some money in stocks and think of that as part of your emergency fund if it's in a brokerage account, or if you're really in a pinch, you can actually take money out of your Roth IRA. So because you put post-tax money into your Roth IRA, you can actually take out any contribution without paying any penalty. But if you pay out, if you take out any of the earnings off of the principal, then you have to pay taxes and penalty on that. But you can take out your contributions without penalty if you need to. The thing is, you can't really put it back in. There's a small window where you can put it back in, but after that, then you aren't able to return that money. So knowledge is not power, it's just potential power. Taking action is power. So after watching this video, think about how much do you think you would need to have an emergency fund, and review what you have. If you don't have an emergency fund, maybe start thinking about saving it up. If you're in a place where you're still in training and money is still very tight, then at least try to put away like $1,000 for the emergency fund. That would be enough to cover any deductible on your car insurance or your home insurance if you have a home, or even just replace your phone if it were suddenly to die. But really think about, like, how much do you want to have in your emergency fund? How much do you want to have it in different places so that you can have some of that money still working for you? Because it's really about opportunity cost, right? There's an opportunity cost of if you have some in your emergency fund in the stock market and the stocks are down like they are now, that you may sell at a loss. But also the opportunity cost of keeping a lot of cash so that if the stock market is going up, you're kind of missing out on that growth as well. So it's all about balance. And, there's always subtleties in everything. But I would recommend keeping at least 3 months of money someplace that you can easily assess, that is relatively stable, and that you don't have to necessarily dive into a place like your Roth IRA, in the case that you need something for just a short period of time, or it's a large but not so large amount. Obviously, if you have a very secure job and you're only spending about half of your income, then you've got a large cash cushion. You probably can just even use your income to pay for unexpected expenses, like things like your car, or maybe even a roof on your house. So it really is, personal finance really is personal. It's all about you. And these are just some guidelines to help expand your mind when you think about having an emergency fund. Right, I hope this video was helpful for you. I want to keep bringing this financial information to help you on your path to wealth. If you would like more personal attention on building that path to wealth, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to help you. You can always reach out to me at my website, growyourwealthymindset.com. And you can always email me at growyourwealthymindset@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.